Hi, and welcome to another edition of Better Minneapolis. Today I'm here with Mike Newcome, who's running for governor.
That's Mike Newcome.
Newcome.
Like new and come on over here.
Okay.
That's okay.
And he is running for governor on the Forward Independence Party. So welcome.
Thank you.
So maybe we could start. You could give people more of an idea of your background and why you chose to run.
Sure. And I think the most important thing is I have to get name ID because people might confuse me for Mike Newsome, but it's Mike Newcome, and I always tell people it's like new and come on over here.
Okay.
So Newcome, no B.
And what's your website when people want to?
So my website is newcomeforgovernor.com. So Newcome forgovernor.com.
Okay.
So no offense taken. My
Well,
name is getting butchered
a-
all the time,
I
but
was
this is my
rushing.
problem. I need name ID and I need name recognition, and that's why I'm here on your show.
Okay, well, great.
So
great.
you want a background. I'm a Minnesotan, born
See,
and
now
bred.
that's important to people. So where were you born at?
I'm a white bear guy, so go Bears. If I don't say that, I get hate text messages from my graduating class of 1987.
Okay.
So I'm born and raised in White Bear Lake. My mom and dad, Tom and Esther Newcome. I'm the youngest of 6, but by 8 years is my closest sibling. So I was a pleasant surprise, as my mom said, and as my older sibling said, a mistake. Yeah.
Right.
And growing up in White Bear Lake, both my mom and dad were really involved in civics. So my dad was the mayor of White Bear Lake, the city attorney. He actually served in the legislature for 10 years.
Okay.
My mom, you name the group, whether it be the White Bear Historical Society, the Women's Club, every organization under the moon she was involved in. So we have a long history in our family of civics, giving back, because when you live in a community, you want to make it awesome.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And I've been here ever since. So I graduated high school in 1987. I went on to the University of St. Thomas. I graduated from college, and I got my first job here at a really small startup in Minnesota, and really parlayed that into a long career. I won't bore you, or I won't bore your watchers or listeners. And I actually then started my own company. So I built the largest residential cleaning business in the Twin Cities called Details Home Services. My motto was, when I started it, I went from the boardroom to the bathroom, and it smells a lot better in here. And then I said, my new motto when I'm elected governor will be, boy, did you think the bathroom smells? Little humor.
Okay, good.
So I'm a Minnesotan. I was a former business owner, and really for the last 8 years, I sold my business 9 years ago so that I could focus on my family. And I've been married for 22 years, and I have 2 boys, Max, who's 18, he's in his freshman year of college, and my son Mitch, who's a freshman in high school. And so I spent the last 9 years making breakfast, cleaning, doing all the laundry, getting all the groceries. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've been doing free consulting for startups during that time, but my entire focus has been my family. So I understand the struggles that families are going through, especially when you go to the grocery store.
So why now? What motivated you to kind of change your life a little bit and run for governor?
Good question. Well, it's twofold, because now finally my kids are older, so they don't need 100% of my attention. But I think, like most Minnesotans, we recognize something is wrong. And what we recognize is it's not the state, if you're a little bit older like me, that we recognize or that we grew up in. And so I felt compelled, because I call this, I've been saying to people, this upcoming election isn't just an election. It is truly for the heart and soul of Minnesota. And I believe we have a broken government. My mantra is, we no longer have a government that's by the people and for the people. It's now by the party and for their special interest. And that our current political leaders are so steeped in their partisan battles. To paraphrase Lyndon Johnson, if the Democrats walked across Lake Minnetonka in the middle of summer, the Republicans would probably put out a press release saying Democrats can't swim. So Johnson said that a long time ago. He said, if I walked across the Potomac, the press would put out a headline that says Johnson can't swim. So I thought it was appropriate for this election. But because of this partisanism and because of this, winner take all that happens at our capital, we're all suffering as Minnesotans. And I'm sure, like you, like me, like my neighbors, like everybody I know, we're feeling the effects of a not well-run government.
And is that why you chose the forward independence line? Is because you want to get outside of that sort of battle between Democrats and Republicans?
Yeah, I look at Minnesotans. We're very pragmatic, and you always hear common sense Minnesotan, common sense Minnesotan. I couldn't accomplish what I'm going to accomplish within the confines of the party system, and here's why: they have too many agendas that I believe, and I know Minnesotans believe, don't align with all of us. It's very specific, and it's very specific to the party. So if I was going to try to run as a Republican, I'd have to bring all their agendas, all their special interests, and all their baggage. Same thing if I wanted to run as a Democrat, I'd have the same exact complexities. So the Forward Independence Party allows me the luxury to have my own platform, but their only mission is that we have a collaborative effort to governing and that we put people before parties. That's it from them. And that's my agenda. And I know that that's resonating with Minnesotans because I've been out and about and they're saying, thank you. We've been looking for a viable alternative.
Right.
Versus instead of voting against someone, they want to vote for someone.
And so along those lines, what are your top 3 priorities? What are those things that you want people to vote for?
Well, the first thing is we have to get into this affordability issue. And that is broad and vast. And we could talk about that for 4 days of everything that we have to get into to start to pinpoint in getting our state more affordable, especially for our young people, and it's killing our seniors. So number 1, we have to address the affordability issue. Number 2, public safety. And here's why. Because I have on my website that every single Minnesotan, no matter where you're from or who you are, deserves access to the good life. But that good life starts by being safe in your house, in your streets, and in your community. So public safety, and if you go to my website, you'll see that one of the things I'm going to be doing, and no one else is proposing this, within the first 60 days, we're going to have a public safety summit. We're going to have judiciary, we're going to have public safety officials, we're going to have policy people, we're going to have community activists. We are actually going to sit down and try to come up in a nonpartisan, non-politicized way, a short-term framework for how we address immediate crime problems, and then building a long-term framework that we can stamp out across the state. But it's only done in a non-politicized, non-party way. And I've got commitment already from some chiefs that they would be very open to that type of a discussion.
I feel like where some of those discussions get hung up is on the issue of gun control.
Sure.
Which is, maybe you've experienced this, but I feel like people who live outside of the Twin Cities have, different views of it, right? Because they're much more about hunting, rifles, and things of that nature, and any sort of curbs they're pretty opposed to. Whereas in the city, a lot of those weapons are not appropriate, right? And so people have a different feel about it. But
well, just to address that, so and having gone out to outstate and having been in the city, so what I wouldn't say is that people who live in outstate Minnesota they're less concerned about their guns being taken away because of hunting. They believe in the Second Amendment, as do I, that our founding fathers put that in there for a reason. And it's not necessarily about protecting your home against a criminal that's going to break into it. It's to protect our communities from potentially a treacherous government that might come to our door and want to take us away. So when I talk to people in outstate Minnesota, they say we need to protect the Second Amendment, and I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, but they also believe that we need to keep guns out of the hands of bad people. And that's essential. And they see what happens in the city here. And again, it's not because they have some different viewpoint of America or the cities. They just believe that the Second Amendment is a sacred right. And they're willing to do anything to protect that. But they also recognize we have a crime problem in the cities. We have crime that's being committed with guns. And everyone I talk to says the more we can keep weapons out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them without impeding on the rights of law-abiding citizens, they're all for it. So there's a lot more commonality than the political people want us to believe.
Okay.
These aren't, and I don't like using pejoratives or weird words. These aren't gun-toting people, crazy people that have these crazy ideas. They're Americans, they're Minnesotans, they really believe the same exact thing we do. They just have a different perspective, but at the end of the day, they want to keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people without impeding on law-abiding citizens. And I agree with them. So how do you do that? You don't use political theater. You don't use hyperbole that says, we're going to ban this and we're going to ban that, because that's not going to bring people together. It's how do we solve the problem of guns being used and getting in the hands of bad people and committing horrendous crimes. Because I want to tell you, if I have to see one more thing, I'm going to punch myself.
Well, you'll be seeing more. I mean,
you know what I mean?
It happens
and
all
again, I think though, where I'm not open to, what I'm wanting to do is bring all parties together to have a really common sense discussion on this, but not politicize it.
Yeah.
No hyperbole, no BS.
Well,
let's really talk about it.
That would be an amazing accomplishment.
I'm going to do it, and that's the difference.
Okay.
Because I'm not coming with an agenda. My agenda isn't to say you're wrong, and my agenda isn't to say you're wrong. My agenda is to say, I hear you, and I hear you. And by the way, you have a lot more in common than you think, but the people who are speaking for you are ensuring that the two of you are at odds.
Well, I took us off a little bit off.
That's
in
okay.
A tangent,
I'm all good.
right? So affordability, public
Public safety.
and for public safety, you're going to have a summit, and then is there another?
Yeah, I mean, we need to have a thriving business environment in Minnesota. Right now, businesses no longer see Minnesota as a good investment. You know, we don't have a red carpet rolled out. We have a do not enter sign.
Yeah.
And that is bad for everybody. It's bad for every citizen of Minneapolis, and it's bad for every person in outstate Minnesota.
And what are some of those do not enter things? Do you is it our tax rate, regulations? What do you think makes us unfriendly?
So from a corporate standpoint, and that's there's a difference between large corporations and small businesses such as I owned. From a corporate standpoint, we have one of the highest corporate tax rates in the country at 9.8%. So if you're looking to build a large manufacturing plant somewhere in the country, and you start to take your arrow out and you say, okay, North Dakota, nothing, Minnesota, 9.8%. They're going to go to where the money is, or where the money isn't getting taken out of their pocket. And what people have to recognize is they're willing to pay taxes. But a lot of the taxes that they're going to be paying is because they're going to be hiring people, and it's going to be in the community, and they're going to pay property taxes. But we need to get them in here. Yeah. And then we can once we get them in here, then we'll be able to have that pot of gold that we can build communities around, we can fund our schools, and we can do that. So that's one of the do not enter signs. The other side is when you talk about regulations, we're going to have a mandate that's coming out January 1st this year, the Family Leave Act.
Right, yeah.
So in principle and on paper, it sounds great. You have a sick family member, you need to take care of them, you can take off your job. Depending on your income level, you could get 50% or 90% of your wage, and you can go take care of that person knowing that your job's going to be back for you. But that was a one-size-fits-all mandate, and that mandate, there is a lot of unintentional consequences that are going to damage our state. So for small businesses, if you have two people working there and two people can January 1st say, I'm gone, and you can't hire someone to replace them, or what do you do? What do you do? Most small businesses, as a small business owner, when I was there, someone would come to me and say, Mike, I have a sick family member, and I had a huge Latino contingency working with me. Best people on the planet, by the way. I'm sorry, everyone's the best person on the planet, but I got a sweet spot for my Latino friends because they helped me build what I built, and without them, it wasn't going to happen. Yeah. But I always took care of them. Mike, my mom's in the hospital. I'm a business guy. The best thing is to make sure you take care of your team, because without your team, There is no business. And so I think a lot of these small businesses that now are going to have this huge burden, they're not going to know. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what to do when their teams are gone. There should have been a lot of carve-outs for businesses, especially small businesses. And it's going to hurt employees. You're the 4% coming out of your paycheck and the 4% coming out of the company's paycheck, that to some people, that's damaging money. You know, when you live hand to mouth and everything along the lines. So programs like that, these mandates that come down, that were done in a vacuum, that was passed in an echo chamber with no support from one side of the aisle and 100 support. A lot of the people who supported that are now recognizing, wait a minute, we did not think this one through. Because look what it's going to do to schools. It's going to be a lot of e-learning days when 10 bus drivers take off.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of schools that when their teachers decide on January 1st, 5 of them, and they have to hire substitutes, and that wasn't in the budget. So this is the unintentional consequences of what I thought sounded like a wonderful thing, is going to be very damaging. And it's not just damaging for businesses, it's going to be damaging for me and you. So I would be addressing that. We have to look into that. We have to sit down and say, it had a great name, but we got to roll it out properly, or we have to scrap this and figure out a better way of going about it.
Yeah, I think it's an additional payroll tax, right? I think
Yeah, so you're going to pay 4%, and the business owner has to put 4% into this fund.
Is it that much? I didn't think. I thought it was like 0.66.
No, it's 0.8, but 0.4 and 0.4. I'm sorry.
Okay, whoa.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm speaking in two generalities, but it's enough to where a business owner would lose $1,000 a year, and as a small business, that's a big deal. And when you're taking $100, $200, $300 out of somebody's paycheck on an annual basis, that they'll never utilize that program, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Again, in principle and in name, it was a wonderful thought. But in execution, you cannot take something. You know, not everyone wears large pants. Okay, I wear a size 32. You might wear a size 33.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of did that here in Minneapolis with the when they raised the minimum wage, right? So it was the timing was different for small businesses so that they had more time to...
Yeah, they escalated it. I don't even think rolling this out with timing for small businesses would fix it. There has to be a carve-out. There has to be something that says if you're a 3-employee company and these are very subject matter experts that you cannot replace, and you already have vacation and you already have sick time, we're going to carve something out for you because we recognize that those people won't have a job to come back to.
Right.
And that's what we don't want. Again, I'm not for families and I'm not for taking care of people. I get it. It was just a poorly executed and released mandate that is going to have a lot of unintended consequences because it was done in an echo chamber.
So speaking of that, I mean, I think there's a lot of speculation as to how it's going to impact the state budget, right? Because it all goes into a special fund. And they just released projections on the state budget, and I think there was a lot of people that were a little surprised that, you know, the budget has gone up in terms of the spending, but in the next couple of years, they see a surplus here in the short term and then a deficit in the longer term. And so, you know, we're sure to hear a lot of debates over the next year of how do you get those things in alignment so that we don't go, I think it was $3 billion into
like 2 or something.
Yeah, but
a billion here and a billion there. Who's counting?
So did you have any thoughts on that budget? Is there anything differently that, you know, priorities that you would have with the budget?
So we'll come back to the specific there, but the biggest problem with the budget right now is we have no idea what it actually costs to operate our state. And what I mean by that is we don't know how much leakage is falling through in our state agencies. And we can talk about the most important topic or the biggest buzzword in our state right now, which is fraud. It's kind of like a business. You got, you know, location. Right now, everyone's talking about this fraud. The realities of it are, we don't know if this was a $1 billion fraud or an $8 billion fraud. When you're talking numbers that large, what does it really cost to operate our state? And I can just use the analogy of my business. I knew that I had a payroll that cost me this. I had utilities, I had gas, and I had all these different things. And I said, if my business doesn't generate any money, it costs me, I'm just saying, $100. I knew that's what it cost me to operate my business. That meant I can operate the business if I bring $100 in, and I'm making profit if I bring $125 in. We have really no idea what it actually cost to operate our state. And so the biggest thing that's going to happen the minute I get into the office is we're going to bring in people that are subject matter experts, and we are going to get to the bottom line. Instead of there being a political appointee over the Department of Health and Human Services, we're going to bring in an expert. And then we're going to give all of our state employees, the 45,000 wonderful Minnesota state employees that work in all these agencies, the tools to root out this crime, to root out this waste, and actually work on behalf of Minnesotans. We're so technologically behind here. We have counties that their systems don't talk with the state.
Yeah.
So the first thing before we talk about the Russian algorithm of how to figure out a budget is we have to figure out what we're spending.
Well, it seems like one of the obstacles there, and this happens, even on the city level, is that government in a large part has become an outsourcer, right? Like instead of, say, the government running a daycare, the legislator is putting aside money to subsidize nonprofits or other providers to do the daycare.
And that's where the problem can happen.
Right. So it's like the infrastructure that's needed to keep track of everything that these outside vendors are doing is extensive, right?
That's why we're in the problem we're in. So I would never do that as a business person. Right. So I'm running a business and I need to have a subcontractor do my window cleaning. The last thing I do is say, well, just go out and clean windows for me and then send me the bill without knowing anything else. And that's what the state did. The state said, all right, we're going to get all these third-party groups and they're going to do some administration of these things. Just send us the bill. But it comes down to because we have people that are running government that don't understand business and don't understand how it works. And when it's not your money, and we've all done this, someone gives you $50, if you pick up $10 on the road, first thing you do is go, well, I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket. I don't care. It's not my money. That's kind of the thought process of our current leaders. It's not really my money, so why should I take care of it?
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of our money, the state's money, like it's my money. And that means we're going to spend it wisely.
Well, there's certainly a lot of people in the Twin Cities and elsewhere that are just in shock, I guess, over the amount of property taxes and the jumps, right? Like mine went up 10% this year, and I think it was like 8% last year. So over 2 years, it's gone up 18%. And people are really wondering, to your point, like, what are we paying for? And the fraud really gets under their skin because of that.
And I'll touch on that. But we had an agreement in Minnesota between the citizens and our government. We're all willing to pay a little bit more in taxes compared to our surrounding states. But in return for that, we're going to have a thriving business environment. We're going to have good roads and good transportation, and our public schools are going to be world class. That agreement is now broken. So the government, our leaders have broken the agreement with the general population, us. And you want to talk about property tax. There's candidates out there that just throw out the political talking points. I'm going to lower property taxes. How? Right. What are you actually going to do to lower property taxes? So property taxes at the local level, one of the biggest ticket items is public education. So when you pay property tax at your local level, it goes to public education. And then the rest of your property tax will go to the services in your city, your first responders, and everything along those lines. There's so much attached to that property tax number.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's the tentacles are vast, and the county has its constraints. So just as an example, so we have the Medicaid program in the state of Minnesota. And what we do is, in the state of Minnesota, the dashboard of that Medicaid program is pushed out to the counties. So the counties are the ones where you will go into and determine if you're eligible for Medicaid or Minnesota Care, or you go to the MNsure, the dashboard there, and you can also figure this out, or go out into the private insurance. But when the state or our federal government says, oh, we're going to take money away from the administration portion of that service that you are now in charge of, well, guess where the county has to go? To the taxpayer. And then they go to the taxpayer and say, we're raising your taxes because we are administering a program that the state and the federal government pays for, and they're not giving us money from an administrative standpoint.
Yeah.
So that's
the unfunded mandate, right?
There you go. It's the unfunded mandate. It's the same thing in our school districts. They push down, whether it's funded or unfunded. Remember, the funding is still coming from us.
Yeah.
So, but the unfunded ones are coming in and saying, everyone paint your walls blue. I mean, I won't go into specifics. And they say, great. Well, who pays for it? Well, you're paying for it. And that's an unfunded, I mean, that's an example of an unfunded mandate. There's a program that's called the Achievement and Integration. Forget what it does. Well-intentioned program, probably thought it would have wonderful results and would help our youth. That program has been in place since 2013, which, by the way, came out of another failed program. Mm-hmm. But the legislature felt, let's just do another one. In the last fiscal year of 24-25, this program cost $138 million between local 30% and state 70%. And the Legislative Audit Department came out again with its audit and said it is meeting 0% of its own goals and objective.
Right.
I have to repeat that. Again, I'm not going after the program. What I'm saying is it met 0% of its own goals and objectives and met 0% of preparing any student for the future. Those type of programs we need to look at. It's somebody's baby, and there's a lot of administrative cost. And again, I'm not for good programs that benefit the kids, and whether it's specific to a city, maybe there's minority groups or disadvantaged groups that we need to help. I think it's great. If it moves the needle.
Moves the needle, sure.
These aren't moving needles.
So,
they're poking us.
So that makes me think of a couple other questions. I mean, obviously what you're talking about, people are legislators are putting in programs and then they just never go away. They're always there. No one's going back and looking at them to see if they're effective. And one of the things that comes to my mind is well, maybe there needs to be sunset clauses written into some of these things, right? But a lot of people disagree with it, but I'm in favor of term limits, right? I feel like certain politicians just gain too much power. I know other people will say, oh, well, the experience is important. But to me, that, developing that fiefdom is too much of a harm. So I'm just wondering, where do you stand on like term limits and other reforms to help make our government more efficient?
Well, originally, people who served in our government, and I'll just use the state level, because my father did, by the way. Mm-hmm. My father served in the Minnesota state legislature for 10 years, from 1964 to 1973. These were part-time jobs, mm-hmm. and my dad had a full-time job. And when he went to the legislature, his office was on the floor of the House. He didn't have a big, beautiful space over in the state office building. He sat on the floor. He did his business there, and they conducted business and went back. In his term limit, he said, if after 10 years I can't accomplish what I went in there for, which was to serve my community and to serve my state, then I'm gone. And that's what he did. He actually did a lot of great things. But he knew that it's time to move on because they were citizen legislators. Mm-hmm. And we've lost vision of that. The people who served with my dad, the men and the women, they were farmers and they go back and farm. They were small business owners and they go back to their business. They were lawyers like my dad and he'd go back and practice law. We've lost all of that today. We have career politicians that go into office with a net worth of $50,000. And somehow they leave public office with a net worth of $50 million. There's a problem there. Yeah. That's a major problem.
Well, so that comes down to like campaign finance reform. I mean, it's very expensive to run for office. I mean, do you think there should be and I know you're battling Citizens United and the Supreme Court
Yeah.
and stuff, but I mean, what would you like to see in terms of differences of how we might finance campaigns? I mean, there's been talk of, some cities will do matching funds up to a certain point, things like that. Do you have any ideas that you would like to see implemented?
So going after that, I want to talk about, so what is the solution? The solution is for the citizenry to be made aware of who owns their candidates. That's number one. That's campaign finance reform. And so what I've told people is, I was on Tom Hauser at Issue, and he said, how are you going to compete? Governor Walz, the number is between $10 and $15 million he's going to be putting into this campaign. And they said, how do you compete with that, Mike? And I said, I see it as an Achilles heel. Because what I'm going to be pointing out, and I think what Minnesotans are going to recognize during this election is, first of all, who's given $15 million for you to run for governor? And once you realize where that money's coming from, and then you say, I said they need to wear a uniform like NASCAR. It's got to have all their sponsors on it, all over their shirt. And they say, that's why my health care cost isn't going down. Now I get it. So we could probably battle campaign finance. If it was up to me, everyone would spend the same amount of money. We'd go out with the same message. We'd be able to let the best man or woman win, whoever it is. You have the best message. You have the best thing. I don't think we're going to get there, but I think we need to get your audience and everyone else out there to recognize who really does own your candidates. And that's, again, why I'm running as an independent is the only special interest I have are going to be Minnesotans.
Yeah.
So, money in these campaigns is crazy. And I just had someone yesterday.
Well, I love the idea of the NASCAR outfit.
Yeah,
And
make them show. And you want to know what? I have one big, and I don't say this for a flex, and I don't say this to be tone deaf. The largest contributor to my campaign to date, and it'll most likely be the largest contributor throughout, is me.
Yeah.
I put in a fair amount of money to start this campaign, and I'm already put in another fair amount to keep it going. Why? Because I'm not going to be bought and sold. You can give me money, but it's not going to change how I govern.
You might look up Gary Johnson, who ran for governor in New Mexico.
Okay.
And he was pretty much an unknown, but he used his own money to get his name recognition out there.
That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
And he ended up becoming the governor of New Mexico and then getting reelected. So there is a path there.
There's a huge path, and I'll tell you, we can talk, but you answer your questions. But I want to make it clear for people who listen that you're 100% on. All I need is name ID, and for people to know there's a viable alternative. Because whether you have a D that you've always voted for, or an R or an I will guarantee 85% of the issues we stand together on. And that's what I need Minnesotans to recognize. My entire campaign is based around, this is going to be a campaign about issues in substance, not finger pointing or name calling. What I've said is, if you need to use a nasty word to describe your political opponent, that's an automatic disqualifier for public service. I am running against the governor of Minnesota, and his name is Tim Walz, and that's how I will address him. Regardless, I think he's a failed administrator and done not a good job on behalf of Minnesota, but I don't call names, and I don't.
Well,
period.
You won't have to. There will be 15 Republicans.
I know, and guess what?
Doing that for you.
You want to know something? That's going to tell you something. That if you need to use a nasty word to describe your political opponent, it should tell everyone out there and everyone across Minnesota they have nothing to run on.
Right.
They have nothing to run on except divisive and separation. That's not my campaign.
So speaking of issues, I think a big one that's happening right now is the cost of health care. We see, even outside of the fraud, the premiums are going up. It's hurting business in Minnesota. What's your thoughts on how Minnesota can keep
fix it?
Yeah, how can we fix it? How can we?
So, what I tell everybody is everything's going to be on the table. In a Newcome administration. So right now, at the federal level, they broke this system. They've ruined this system. we had a pretty decent healthcare system, and we could have put a nice patch into it on the public side to ensure that all of our citizens had affordable and good access to healthcare, because I do believe that we should not be bankrupting people, and I don't believe people should be out in the world without being protected. I'm just telling you from my moral standpoint, that's my position. However, the government, and whether it's Democrats, Republicans, and whomever, they have broken this system so long. So the fix is really simple. I don't have one answer for the fix. Because in Minnesota, you have to look at, we have our Medicaid program, which takes care of our extremely low income, disability, and our seniors. We have our Minnesota Care, which then kind of fills the gap for people who have, they have money, but they're not, they don't get health insurance from their employer. And then you have the MNsure program, which is basically just a dashboard that kind of lays over all these different options where people can go in and, do you qualify for Medicaid? Do you qualify for Minnesota Care, or can you go to a private insurer? The problem is all of these networks, there's been all these different patchworks. There's been all these tentacles put in, all of this cost, all of this inefficiency, and it's driving prices up through the roof because providers on the back end are all consolidating. Where one time we had 14 options for fast food out there, well, we have 4 options for healthcare providers. Yeah. They're buying up the small rural. They're doing all this. So what do they do when you buy it up? You jack up your prices.
You see that particularly in hospitals or
of course
consolidating.
So and when people say there's one answer and there's one silver bullet, we have a lot of problems that are a lot of reasons why healthcare costs are going up. Inefficiencies in how they're being run and administered, and then also inefficiencies as who we're paying and how they're charging us. So I've delved into this a lot, and people say, what's the answer? Is it a single payer option? Meaning, do we come into the state and say, we're gonna have a single payer option, we're gonna get the Medicaid and Minnesota Care and kind of roll it up, grow that group for people who are making enough money but still don't qualify for Minnesota Care, get them in there, and then still have all your private insurance through, if you go through your employer, if you want to still go through the MNsure website to find your own private if you can afford it. I don't know if that's 100% the right answer, but it sounds a lot better than the answers we have under. My fear is this: anytime you grow government programs, you get the result we have right now: fraud, waste, and abuse. So anything we do, we have to bake in the cake that it doesn't turn into this what we're dealing with right now. And that's what scares me about the Family Leave Act. They hired 300 people at the state level to administer this.
You think that's enough or not enough?
Well, seems like a pretty big bureaucracy.
Okay.
I joke. Government's good. Yeah. I'm not an anti-government person, but an efficient government. My point is, when all that money starts flowing through that program, in 2 years you're going to hear about all the waste and abuse.
It's such a big ticket item. I mean, even before what's happening in Minnesota, there's been, like Medicare, they've estimated 20 to 25% of the cost is fraud, right? Like not in Minnesota, but like
around the country.
Around the country, you have fake billers, selling
dead people,
all kinds of things. So I mean, that's definitely an issue. You mentioned universal health care. Some people propose that. Some people propose like a buy-in option. I guess I'm hearing from you like maybe reviewing the system to see where we can keep the costs down, but I'm not sure kind of like where you sit.
I don't have 100% definitive answer, because I don't do things in a vacuum and I don't do things in an echo chamber. That's going to be the big difference. Is a lot of people who are telling you they have the solution, they're full of crap. Yeah. They don't have the solution. They just want to tell you they have the solution. What I'm telling you is we're going to work towards a solution. And when we have a solution, it's going to be the right solution. But you're talking about so many complexities. Providers, insurance companies, us, the state, the administrators, the drug companies. This is a big, wild thing. What I'd like to see is the federal government solve it all. No, I mean, but we're gonna. When this comes down, this is a major part of the affordability issue. We're gonna bring in experts that we're gonna sit down. And the other deal is we have to ensure that we don't get our opinions swayed by people who paid. The highest bidder is not going to get what they always want in a Newcome administration. That's the difference. So I'm a bit scary to people who have to bidders who have been owning our politicians out there. I'm a bit scary for them, because what I'm saying is we're going to do what's right for people in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Minnesota, not your shareholders.
I have heard there's quite a few healthcare lobbyists at our state capitol.
Just a few.
So last question for you here. If you're elected, how are you going to judge yourself? How in 4 years will you know if you've been successful?
Well, and I'm even going to say the first year.
Okay.
4 years, well, I'll use both. The most successful thing that I'd be able to do for me and for Minnesota is to actually get legislation passed in a bipartisan fashion with Republicans, Democrats, and independents. I don't know what that piece of legislation is, but when we can get all parties working together, that would be the greatest success. Because when you have everyone working together and our goals are mutually aligned, which is to get Minnesota thriving again, that is a win. And I know that we can get that done, because as an honest broker and a mediator, I've had Democrats reach out to me and Republicans who are serving, and our former legislators say, we'd be more apt to work with you as a governor than we would across the aisle. And I said, as long as we get stuff done for Minnesota, you can take all the credit you want and go back to your constituents, and you can take all the credit you want and go back to your constituents, and I can look in the middle and say, look, our representatives did what they're supposed to do, and I don't care. I don't care if I get an ounce of credit, because the win will be from Minnesota, and that's why I'm in this.
Well, it's whoever is elected, it's going to be a challenging role, right? I mean, it's it's amazing how closely divided it is, and so maybe it's going to take someone from Forward Independence Party to break that up. Are there any topics or issues that we didn't cover today that you wanted to bring up before we close it out?
Well, no. What I'd want your watchers and your readers to know is this: that I am committed to this race. I am authentic in what I'm saying. I'm not saying this to earn your vote. I'm saying this because I believe in it. I believe we have a broken system that is no longer representing the people, and I jumped into this race so that we can bring some sanity back into our political system. And I'm sincere in saying that I'm a problem solver with Minnesota values and common sense, and I know there's more of us out there. I won't put you in my camp yet. You don't have to have that, but there's more of us out there than less of us. And whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, an Independent, you're all welcome in our campaign. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you sleep with. You're with me. And that's all I care about, is getting Minnesota moving in the right direction together. That's the difference. Together. Both of the parties are going to talk about their enemy. No one's my enemy. They're both my partners.
Well, great. Thank you for joining me today, and good luck out there on the trail.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.